All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to New Break Ocean Beach. We're happy to see you here this morning. Thanks for spending your Sunday morning with us. My name's Cody Harvey. I am one of the volunteers here. And this community, this church family that we have here at New Break has had a special impact on my life. And so I'm super stoked to be able to stand up here and share with you guys today, share a little bit about what we're doing here in the coming weeks, today. And I hope that you can jump in. You find something you're excited about and can experience that same impact that I've experienced in my life. So yeah, with that being said, if you're new here, welcome. I hope you feel so at home. I hope you feel welcomed here. We're very happy that you're here, and we would love to meet you. We would love to say hello, introduce ourselves. We'd love to learn more about you. So after the service, if you'd want to stop by the hospitality cart right out the front door, you could look for Jordan or myself or any of our other volunteers will be out there. They'd be happy to say hello and just introduce you to who we are as New Break, as a church. But we also want to learn about you, and we want to just hook you up with a free gift. So you'll be walking out here with one of our new coffee mugs. So you'll leave church in style today. Yeah, and while you're out there in the courtyard, we got a lot going on in the courtyard today. If you're newer here, it doesn't necessarily need to be your first time here, but if you're newer to New Break and you want to learn a little bit more about who we are as a church, go ahead and head to the sign-ups wall, and you'll find the sign-ups for our Next Steps class, which is next Sunday. It's going to be during the 10:45 service. So next Sunday, that'll be a really good class to just kind of get introduced to who we are, what we believe in, how we live in a missional community, and how our faith is rooted at the center of that. And it'll just be a good chance to meet more people, get introduced to, I think Pastor Carter is going to stop in, and it's going to be led by Barth, my man over there. So yeah, it's just a great chance to meet new people, learn more about us. We can learn more about you. So get signed up. It's on the sign-ups wall out there in the courtyard. And next, also in the courtyard, we have our book drive going on today for Voices for Children. So for that, I'm going to invite Renee up here. She's going to fill us in on everything.
Charlotte's going to join us too.
Last minute plans. No worries. I didn't know it either. That's why I'm in the football jersey. So sorry about that. Good morning, everybody. My name is Charlotte. This is Renee and Riker. I work at Voices for Children, which is an organization here in San Diego that serves children in foster care. And we've been so excited to be a partner of New Breaks for the last several years. I don't know if you guys remember book drives in the past, and the backpack and school supply drive as well that you've blessed us with. So I just want to say thank you for all that you've already done for us as a church. So as I said, we serve children in the foster care system right here in San Diego. There are about 4,000 kids, newborns, 1 day old, all the way up to age 21. And we just try to serve them in every area of life that they need to ensure that they don't fall through the cracks. This is a really special time of year that we have an opportunity to bless them, because many of them will be spending Christmas separated from their moms and dads, separated from their siblings sometimes spending their first Christmas in an emergency shelter, the hospital, a group home, an institution or facility. And so what can be a really joyful and happy time for us is sometimes a really painful and tragic reminder for them that Christmas isn't how it should be, and that they're separated from their families. And we know that no child deserves to have a Christmas like that. So while we can't solve the foster care crisis here in San Diego, we can do something small just to bless them and to remind them that they're loved by people that don't even know them, that they're loved by God. And so we have a tangible opportunity to show love to the kids this Christmas through the book drive. So I will pass it over to Renee to talk a little bit more about that.
Thank you. So I'm a partner. I work for Osborne Books and More as a children's publishing company. And what we're doing is partnering with Voices for Children. Have books out in the courtyard area. You're welcome to come purchase a book for donation, write a little note in it for the children. So when we have the Christmas party in December for them, they can go and pick something out for themselves. Like Charlotte was saying, some of them this might be their, one of their few gifts this Christmas, new gifts and everything. So they're going to get a chance to pick what they would like off at the Christmas party. So the books out there are available for purchase and then donation. Additionally, if you want to shop for your families, you can. And my company and I match it all by 50%. So it's a great partnership, and we're really excited to provide these amazing books to the children with Voices for Children, and just expand their horizons, sometimes take them to a different location in the world, and just bless them this Christmas. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, ladies. Yeah, definitely check them out in the courtyard. And on the other side of the courtyard, you'll see we've got another drive going on. Our pie drive is today. We're collecting pies and gift cards for families who need some help this upcoming Thanksgiving. So it's not too late. If you maybe forgot today, you know where to find us. You can run and grab a pie from Olive Tree's got the Julian apple pies. They're delicious. So try not to eat it on your way back over here. But all throughout the day we'll be here. So please drop those pies off. Just a really cool chance to bless some families in need this Thanksgiving. So here at New Break, we are very service-oriented. We love to do a lot of outreach in the community. We love to impact Ocean Beach, Point Loma. But this next service opportunity is something that's a little more in-house, something kind of more behind-the-scenes service. And there's a lot that goes on here, not just on Sundays, but there's a lot that New Break does that wouldn't be possible without volunteers. And so we have a working party text thread right here. And that is, if you want to get involved, whether it be set up, tear down, moving the baptism trough out into the courtyard. We're going to have baptisms after this service, so that's awesome. Super stoked about that. Any of that behind-the-scenes work that kind of keeps everything we do running, if that's interesting to you, you can pull out your phone right now and text Working Party to that number or take a picture. Pastor Carter's promised not to yell at any of you for pulling out your phone in church right now, unless you're checking your fantasy football team. Don't do that. So if you're interested, please go ahead and text that thread, and you'll get some updates on what's going on around here. And as I'm talking about who we are as New Break, as a church, I'd get it all wrong if I didn't mention the fact that we like to have a lot of fun. And we're going to prove that this Friday. We're going to have some fun at our open mic night. It's going to be fun. So we have some people signed up already. We'd love to get you signed up if you have a little hidden talent that you'd like to show off, whether it be singing or dancing, poetry reading, or comedy. You can even come up here and do a backflip if you want. I don't know. It's going to be a lot of fun. Or if you're like me and maybe you don't have that hidden talent that you want to show off, you could just come and be entertained and support everyone that's up here displaying their gifts. And this is also a really cool opportunity to invite some friends to. Maybe there's some people in your life that you would love for them to come to church, but they're not quite there yet. This is a great opportunity to invite them this Friday to just be part of something fun and be surrounded by this community. And you never know what the Lord will do with just one fun event like this. It could be a turning point. So invite your friends. We'd love to see you, whether you sign up or not. It's going to be a fun event. If you're interested, you can sign up on the sign-ups wall in the courtyard. And as we transition more into the message that Pastor Carter is going to deliver today, I wanted to share a brief piece of my testimony and why I'm so passionate about what it is that we're going to be talking about today. I think we do an amazing job here at focusing on living our lives, our daily lives, in a missional way, how to impact our community around us, how to impact our families and our workplaces, and that's one of the most important lessons that I've ever grabbed onto, and it's changed my life. And that term missional, I think, sometimes gets a little misconstrued, and it seems a little out of reach. You think missions, and you think overseas, and there's no way to get involved, and there's nothing I could possibly do to be a part of it because I'm working here and I have a family and this and that. But I was blessed this last year of my life to actually be a missionary. I've spent some time in Asia and Africa and South America, and I got to see firsthand some of the suffering and some of the desperate need for healing and hope and Jesus that this world has. And so I have a deep heart for that term missions. And like I said, it's really important for me to live that daily missional life here in OB, but it's also having experienced what God's doing overseas. He's really, really moving, and there's some miraculous things happening. There's lives being changed every day, and there's ways to be a part of it, even if you're not the one that's able to hop on a flight and go do it yourself. There's ways to partner. And so today, I want us to, as we're listening to the message, my prayer is that we can focus on what God's speaking to us and how we can partner with him to accomplish his mission here in Ocean Beach, in our families, in our workplaces, in our lives, but also how we can partner with him to accomplish his mission around the world. So that's my prayer for us. And with that, let's go ahead and pray and get our hearts ready for this service. Father God, thank you so much. Thank you that you're moving, and thank you that you're a God that is at work in mighty, mighty ways here that we can see and hear, and in places that we can't see, Lord, places in different countries all over the world. God, you are above it all. You're working, and we're thankful. We thank you that you invite us to be a part of it. We are honored to be a part of your mission, and I pray that as Pastor Carter comes up here and delivers his message, I pray that you would speak through him and speak to us, Father, that individually you would teach us what we need to do, what you want us to do to help make an impact in your kingdom. Father, we're not here on accident. We know that you called us here today specifically, individually for a reason, and I pray that you reveal that to each and every one of us today. We thank you so much. We love you, and we pray this all in Jesus' name. Amen.
I am super glad that you're joining us this weekend because we get an opportunity to talk about something that's near and dear to my heart, and that is how you and I can literally change our world. And we do that through Kingdom Builders. Kingdom Builders is the way in which we show compassion to the world. We show the love of Jesus to those around us. We support over 83 missionaries through Kingdom Builders. We partner with some of the best ministries around the globe, and we're involved in a number of different projects. Our goal is to, by next year, give $1 million to missions. That's a pretty big goal, but I have another one that's even bigger, and I want you to be praying about it. And that is that one day New Break would send 200 people full-time to the mission field. So you're going to hear from your campus pastor in just a second. We're glad you're with us this weekend. We hope that you're challenged. We hope you get vision inside of you, but that together we will literally build the kingdom of God.
Hey, what's up? Glad you're here today. Welcome to New Break OB. If I haven't met you yet, Carter Moss, pastor here. I'd love to meet you afterwards, so stick around. Hope you'll stick around for our baptisms, too. We don't do them here super often, so even if you didn't know they're happening today, just be an extra 10 minutes after service if you want to hang out in our courtyard and watch it. We got 4 people signed up, just always so powerful, especially if you've never seen an adult baptism, so hope you'll hang out and see it, but welcome. Glad you're here. It'll be a fun day, just an inspiring day. I love just the energy of what God's doing through us. I hope at the very least you just leave inspired today with some hope. I know we have to hear a lot of bad news during the week, throughout the year about a lot of the issues in the world, but sometimes we need the hope that we can make a difference and that things can be healed and restored. So glad you're here to hear that. Before we talk about the fun stuff, let me ask you this: what makes you mad? What makes you mad? I don't know if you've ever heard the saying, tell me what ticks you off, and I'll tell you what makes you tick. That's kind of an interesting way, right? Just kind of think about what makes people mad. I have a lot of people that say, I can't really picture you mad, Carter. You just seem so nice, laid back. I can't really picture what that's like. So I think it's kind of a weird thing to say to somebody. But I thought, just to clear it up, I'll just go ahead and just show you what I look like when I'm really mad. So here we go. Yeah, so that's actually also how I look when I'm really excited. So then my wife's kind of like, I can never tell which one you are. I'm like, I don't know. I'm just kind of laid back. But I think about, what stuff makes me mad. I'll admit it, sports make me way too mad. I just need to stop following them or at least get whole new teams because I can get frustrated. I don't throw things. Good accountability is watching sports with your kids. At least it is for me because it keeps me from doing anything too crazy. But no, it drives me crazy. My college team last week, Iowa State, were playing number 9 Oklahoma on the road. way behind, came all the way back, all the way at the end, scored touchdown at the end. All you got to do is kick the extra point, tie it, go into overtime, win in overtime. Nope. Coach is gutsy. Let's go for 2. Let's don't go for 2. That doesn't ever work. Guess what? It didn't work. It didn't work. We lost again. Now we're going to limp into a lame bowl game. But anyway, I just need new teams. Drives me crazy. How about traffic? I know, I'm sure I'm the only one. I know it never frustrates you, but oh man, traffic, it just has a way, right? Just like people drive it. Here's what I learned. I don't know if my dad taught me or whatever, kind of when I first learned to drive, but remember, everybody driving faster than you is an idiot, and everybody driving slower than you is a moron. And so, you're going to keep that, right? You're always like, look at that idiot, right? He's going to kill someone. Look at this moron, won't go any faster, right? And it's so funny. Only our speed is the only perfect speed. Everybody else's speed is stupid. Isn't that crazy? Right? I'm like, why do I think I have the only perfect speed? Because I am a better driver than all those people. No, traffic definitely does it for sure. But no, I mean, there's for sure some real things that'll get me mad, get me going. I mean, I'm a dad of 3 kids and a husband. So yeah, people, somebody goes after my family or feel like they're being hurt, it's like blood boils, getting fired up. For sure, one for me would just be anything that has to do with hurting kids. And I know that's true for a lot of people, but yeah, just a huge hard. Just hard to find, hard to watch when you hear stuff about child abuse. Hard to watch for me to watch movies, have any of that stuff going on, and bullying and stuff. I was bullied some as a kid, and I know a lot of kids nowadays put up with it a lot worse. And human trafficking, any of that stuff, just kind of gets me going. I don't know if you've ever thought about not just kind of what annoys you, but what really kind of gets your anger going. And then think about this. What makes God mad? Because I think we misunderstand that a lot. What makes God mad? Some of us, if you didn't grow up in the church, then honestly, you may have a lot less baggage than a lot of other people that have had to work through it. But, kind of depending on how you're raised, some of us think, what makes God really mad is when I cuss a little, when I forget to pray, or if I skip church, or I'm not dressing nice enough for church, and some of this stuff. And I think we really miss the point of the stuff that really kind of honestly kind of brings out God's anger. And it's not the things that we think. I mean, God for sure cares about our lifestyle, but we get really focused on kind of the surfacey stuff. Did I dress nice enough for church or whatever? And meanwhile, God's like, no, I'm concerned about way more important stuff than that. And one of the biggest things that that we see throughout the Bible, there's only a couple of things that kind of emerge to the top, but one of them is definitely the idea of people getting oppressed, people getting taken advantage of. And of course, that's happened all through world history, everything from kids, women, different races, immigrants from anywhere, poor, those that were physically challenged, mentally challenged, right? All sorts of kind of getting taken advantage of, oppressed. It can really affect, almost anybody. And God, when he sees people getting taken advantage of and nobody's doing anything about it, that really gets God's anger going. Which actually, if you think about it, it's actually the opposite of a phrase that we use a lot in our culture. Maybe you've heard this: God helps those who help themselves. We say that God helps those who help themselves. And if you said that before, that's all right. I've said that at times. I think sometimes, there's a real specific application of that. But listen, that actually isn't in the Bible. Well, it's in my favorite book, the Bible, Second Opinions. So if you look it up, it's in there. Second Opinions 3:16. There's a lot of great verses in there. No, but God helps those who help themselves. That's what we say. But think about it. The opposite is actually what God's about. God helps those who can't help themselves. Right? God actually stands up and fights for those who can't help themselves. And so we can misunderstand God's anger. We don't really talk about that much at this church. And I know sometimes you grow up, you picture the pastor's full of fire and brimstone, right? And we just think God's anger is all about judgment and wrath. But it's actually all about love. I love how C.S. Lewis put this, incredible Christian author and thinker, that anger is the fluid love bleeds when it's cut. You think about that, right? So if I get angry because people hurt my family, it's not because I'm all about judgment and wrath and I take joy in punishing people. I just love them so deeply that anger bleeds when love is cut. And so I'd love to help kind of transform your view that God isn't angry cop, angry principal in the sky that loves to just catch people doing things wrong and condemning them, that he's actually just this deeply loving. Jesus' best description of him is a loving dad welcoming his kid back home. And so God's actually this loving Father, and his love runs so deep that when people hurt the people he loves, that's when anger comes out. We looked some last week we've been looking at the book of Malachi, which is the final book of the Old Testament. It happens right before the Christmas story, so we figured we'll study it right before the Christmas story. And as I mentioned last week, this book doesn't hardly ever get taught on. And you know why? Because God's mad in it. And so, we like to skip, I like to skip those books where God, but when we read it, really look into it, it's a short little book, it actually starts with the words God saying, I've loved you deeply. We see it's actually a book about God's love. We looked last week, all Malachi chapter 2, as God's getting frustrated, angry because people keep ruining their relationships. They keep just causing disunity and divisiveness everywhere. God's all about unity and reconciling and relationships coming back together. And so, his anger, his love kind of bleeds anger in that. In Malachi 3, we're not going to dig into a lot there, just show you one verse out of it, because I really want you to see how God sees this all through the Bible. I want you to see that you really can't miss this. It's not in some obscure book that doesn't get taught on, that it's all throughout. But Malachi in chapter 3, verse 5, God says it like this. He says, I'm on my way to visit you with judgment. I'll present compelling evidence against the sorcerers, adulterers, liars, against those who exploit workers, against those who take advantage of widows and of orphans, those who are inhospitable to the homeless, anyone and everyone who doesn't honor me. He says, I'm going to come after you because you're not honoring the people that I honor. And God is always standing up. He's always defending the defenseless. And you'll see that throughout the Bible, it's a lot of, this isn't an exhaustive list of who it is, but it's some of them, and at least some at that time. But you'll see some of this kind of repeated a lot about orphans, homeless, foreigners. He means kind of anybody that isn't from that country. They struggled with immigration a lot back then, caused all sorts of issues like it does now. And God always said, no, it always comes back to loving people, though. Got to love them, doesn't matter where they're from. And so you just see this all throughout. But I don't actually really want to talk to you that much about just about kind of God's feelings on all this. I want to talk about what does this have to do with us and with our life. And the truth is, with God's love, it actually calls us to respond. That's what we're always talking about here, is this idea that maybe if you grew up thinking, Christianity is kind of like a religion, one of many religions. It's not a religion, it's about a relationship. And that our faith is actually meant to make a difference. God's love calls to a response, not just a one-time response at a summer camp, not just to make my Sundays a little bit busier. He calls us to respond, to live out his love, that our faith is meant to actually be a consequential faith and have consequences, real consequences in our real world. And I hope that's good news to you. I think a lot of the reason a lot of people are skeptical of the faith is because it actually doesn't make any difference. It seems like people just kind of go and claim they believe in something, but then nothing really changes in how they live. And people should be frustrated by that. That actually is pretty hypocritical, because God's love calls us to respond. Not just in intellectual belief, I believe in this set of theological statements. His love calls me to respond with love. And actually, if you're brand new to church or brand new to the idea of God and the Bible, or not even sure what you believe about it yet, I'm really glad you're here today, because I'd rather you get the full picture of what God's about and see that it's not just kind of going through the motions of a few rituals or gathering together once in a while. And I actually believe it's the most important mission on the earth. And the one that our world is as hungry for as it's ever been, is really making a difference in our lives. You can see the stuff that God is most passionate about by looking what he talks about the most throughout his word. And so there are smarter people than us who have taken the time that we don't have to count up and see all through Old and New Testament what are the different topics, that God kind of talks the most about. And, that speaks at least somewhat to what he cares the most about. You think about something like prayer. If you look at prayer kind of all throughout the Bible, and of course it depends exactly which words you're counting, but for the exact number. But it always comes out to about 360 different times prayer is talked about throughout the Bible. That's a pretty foundational thing in our life. You think about heaven, right? Sometimes we just think, Jesus is just all about heaven, all about, you're going to go to heaven, going to go to hell. It's all about afterlife. Heaven's talked about over 600 times in the Bible, but that's not near the top. So that's one of the things. You think about money. Money's talked about over 800 times throughout the Bible, which actually is good for us because, man, talk about relevant. I mean, you and I don't live a day of our life without thinking or interacting with money. So it's good that God actually spoke to one of the topics that we deal with the most in our lives. Just because I'm weird, I wanted to look up a couple of random topics. I wonder how often they're in there. So I wonder how many times donkeys are in the Bible. Because, there's always like the one in the Christmas story. And we just don't really have donkeys in our lives right now. And donkeys actually 142 times in the Bible. So just as a pretty prominent animal. And I'm sorry to tell you, residents of Ocean Beach, but dogs aren't mentioned anywhere in the Bible. I'm just saying, I don't know. Donkeys are all over it. I don't know what that means for our lives. But, and just, I have to say this, don't tell anyone I brought it up in here, but since we're in San Diego, we need to know how many times beer is mentioned in the Bible. And it is in there 9 times. So 9 different mentions. You'll have to look up what the Bible says about it. But anyway, it was around back then. It is in there. So, you hear all these different things, right? It's like heaven 600 times, money 800, and all these different things. What about this idea of like justice, like the poor, the oppressed, or kind of, standing up for people in poverty? Over 2,000 times. Over 2,000. So this isn't just like, oh, okay, the church just kind of pulled a verse out of the middle of the book of Malachi. I mean, it's just all throughout it. I read this story, and I do not recommend doing this, but about a Bible professor, and I'm sure he got some interns to help him, but he said, let's go through all 2,000 verses in the Bible with a literal pair of scissors, and they tried just cutting them out of the Bible. Because, sometimes we say, oh, I wish we could cut that verse out of the Bible. So they literally cut all 2,000 plus out of the Bible, and they held up the Bible, and it's just like this kind of tattered book. Right? I mean, what a powerful visual. If you remove that, you remove it so much of what God's about. And so I wanted to show you, we're going to go ahead and just flip through all 2,000 verses because I really want you to see this. Just kidding. It's all right. I want lunch too and football too. We won't look at all 2,000. But let me show you a few, just so you get the idea, the picture, the pattern of what's in here. Go all the way back to Deuteronomy, a lot of the other Old Testament prophets, not just Malachi. You see over and over, foreigners, orphans, widows, right? Standing up for them, defending them, stop exploiting them. Right, so you can see this pattern over and over and over. Ezekiel, Zechariah, some of these you didn't even know were books in the Bible. But all these different kind of prophets, Old Testament, all throughout New Testament, we'll look at in a minute. But kind of all throughout this, right? God over and over, right? God helps those who can't help themselves. And so he calls us to do that. And I hope part of what we get out of this isn't just for us to kind of go, good, I'm glad there's a few like, Mother Teresa or overseas missionaries or guys like Cody who will kind of, go and think about that stuff. That's just not really my thing. And really to come to understand, no, I mean, this is just part of what it means to be a follower of Jesus. I mean, it's just foundational to being it. We don't all have to travel all over the world to do it. But we are called to be a part of it, really. I mean, every Christ follower. I like to think about it like this. If you decide to follow Jesus, or if you have already, your conversion was your commissioning. So when you were converted, you were commissioned to go and do this. That we're actually all meant to be missionaries in all sorts of different ways. And when we miss this, we kind of have a hole, really, in our gospel. I'm reading a great book right now called The Hole in Our Gospel, and be fascinating if you ever want to read about a successful business guy where God really got a hold of his heart with this. And, we're really missing something, right? We kind of have the tattered Bible hanging there with 2,000 verses cut out, and we're meant to have this holistic view of what God is up to in the world and what he wants to do with the people in our lives. Jesus himself, all right, so just in case you're wondering, yes, he talked about the gospel as a whole. One of his most famous verses, and actually I already talked about it last week, but I know that you don't always remember everything I say week to week. It's okay. I can take it. It's all right. I'll just remind you, and if you've been around church, you've most likely heard this before, but some really famous words from Jesus. But I don't know if we always connect. This is him really explaining to us, like, this is kind of the whole gospel, the whole view of what it looks like to follow Jesus. And where it happened, one of the teachers of the law, we read in Mark chapter 12, one of the teachers of the law came and heard Jesus debating. He doesn't pick the fight, but all the other teachers and Pharisees are always picking debates with him. He heard them debating together. He noticed Jesus had given them a good answer, so he asked his question. He's like, wow, this guy seems to have a good answer. I'm going to finally ask this burning question for me. And he goes, of all the commandments, Jesus, which one is the most important? And maybe you've wondered that. What's the most important? Just boil it down for me. Most important one, answered Jesus, is this. And he's going to go on and he quotes something out of the book of Deuteronomy that maybe everybody listening would already know, because Jews really understood their Old Testament. And it's called the Shema. And a lot of families would memorize this and say it to their kids. And so he's letting them know, the Shema that you learned is the most important. The Shema goes like this. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. They always started with that. Then it says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. Maybe you've heard that before. And he says, greatest commandment, right? That's the Shema. Now, if Jesus stopped there, then we'd say, all right, well, now we know our Christian life's meant to be spent just me focusing on just, loving God, right? Love God, let's get good at worship. Let's spend a lot of time in here together. But he didn't stop there. I mean, the guy only asked for one, and Jesus says, well, it's like there's two type of first place, so I can't just tell you one. He said the second is this, love your neighbor as yourself. There is no commandment greater than these. No commandment greater than these. These two are equal. So I don't get to be a person that says, oh, I really love God. I just can't stand people, right? It's like that just doesn't work, because God says if you love me, then you love people, because these two are tied together. Love your God. They would have known that out of Deuteronomy. Love your neighbor as yourself. Believe it or not, it actually also comes out of the Old Testament, comes out of Leviticus, another book we don't talk from often. Here's what I didn't know, though. There's a lot I don't know, as you will discover, and I'm still learning. Lots I didn't know. I've heard this phrase my whole life, but I had no idea that here in Leviticus, it's the very first time in the Bible, and this is like, the third book into the Bible, this is the very first time in the Bible the word love is used as a verb. So other times it talks about God's love, but the very first time God says, you're called to love. Love as a verb is right here, and notice it's about loving your neighbor as yourself. By the way, a few verses later, second time it's ever used, says you're meant to love all of the foreigners among you. So right away, God, his very first time using this, he's talking about loving our neighbor as ourselves. Now, who is our neighbor? Who's our neighbor? Maybe you're asking that right now. Well, you're not the first. One of the other teachers back in the day with Jesus said, all right, Jesus, well, then who's my neighbor? And we don't have time for that entire story. That's a different sermon. But Jesus answered with one of his most famous stories he ever told, and it's a story about a good Samaritan. And it's about a guy who's hurt and in need. And people walk by and ignore him. And one guy, it actually turns out to be the least likely guy. They had a lot of reasons to hate each other, kind of like, Raiders fans and like anybody else or whatever. So they had a lot of, right, like Padres and Dodgers or whatever. So, but this guy actually stops and helps him. And Jesus says, that's your neighbor. So your neighbor is really anyone in need. So sometimes it actually is your next door neighbor. And sometimes it is your roommate and people in this church, and sometimes it's people, that you walk by on Newport. And so, he says, yeah, that's your neighbor. So the truth is, our love for God is really tied to how we love other people. And so that's why we've always tried to be about that here as a church, and we're not perfect at it, but we're going to keep doing everything we can to love others, because we know that's so tied to how we love God. And a lot of how we do that at New Break, if you hang around here long, you'll see we try to do a whole bunch in our local community. We're always trying to share a lot of stories with you and give you opportunities, because everyone I meet actually says, I really want to help, I just don't know how. And I agree. It's actually harder than you think sometimes to figure out how do I help and do good. And so, we try to help you just find lots of ways to do that. So we do stuff all over Ocean Beach, all over Point Loma, and we partner with, police and schools and lifeguards and businesses and town councils and all this different kind of stuff. Obviously, we're doing some of it today even. So great job with that, with pies and books and everything. So we're all about locally, and I believe God calls us to love our neighbor, our literal kind of right where we live. So that's a piece of it. The other piece of it, though, is caring about those around the world, because we're part of the world as well. And even though we can't all go there, although I would challenge you that maybe God is calling some of us to make some trips there to other places, we can still do our part. Even sitting in a little room here on the corner of Cape May and Ebers, we can actually do things that are impacting all over the world, and even people that we'll never get to meet. And so we don't highlight super often here, but I want to make some times where we get to show you, well, hey, here's some of the stuff we do around the world. So when you give here, this is why it's such a big deal. That's why tithes and offerings are a really big deal, because it's making a huge difference. Plus opportunities, plus when you pray for things here, when you serve here, making a big difference. So we talked about 2 of them last month, and just wanted to tell you about our other 2 big partnerships today as a church, all of our New Break locations together. So last month we talked about clean water, about Bible translations, and so to people who have never heard. Today it's talk about just 2 different ones that are both tied in with kids. Again, the idea of orphans and those in distress and oppressed. And the first one has to do with human trafficking. I don't know if you knew what a big deal it is. I never did. Honestly, I always thought, like it's so crazy that happens like third world countries, kids sold into slavery and all this kind of stuff. And, that's terrible for them. I had no idea how prevalent it is in America, for sure. It's huge here, and it's huge right in San Diego because of where we're located. I had no idea it's one of the biggest problems that happens every year at the Super Bowl, by the way. And so it's a huge issue here as well as globally. So, God just gave me a deep heart for it. I'd heard about, some of the stats, like there's 40 million people right now human trafficking, and 75% of those are women and girls, 25% of that is kids. And so it's a huge industry, sadly, because there is so much demand right now for it. And obviously the ultimate goal is, how do you get rid of demand for people that want kid slaves and human slaves? But until then, as we figure that out, it's also about how do we rescue people and then care for them. And we're doing something really cool locally on that, but then really cool globally. So I just wanted to give you a quick glimpse of something that, if you've ever given here, you've helped make this happen. So check it out.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Jensen from Global Family and the Daughter Project, and I am talking to you today from our brand new International Ministry and Training Center here in Falkirk, Scotland. We invite you someday to come visit us here. But today I'm talking to you about the family home that you support in Kathmandu, Nepal. If you don't realize already, you have been a part of this effort from day one, because early on in the work that we're doing in Nepal, we established a shelter for young victims of human trafficking and systematic abuse and exploitation. And through that shelter, we have seen hundreds of children come through, most of which need short-term care. They need help with mental health, with physical abuse that they've encountered, separation, all of the things that would go into providing that temporary care. And happily, most of those children are able to be restored back home with their families in the different parts of Nepal from which they come. But there is a percentage of those children who are not able to go home. And that's where the project that you have started and that you have funded comes from, and that is a family home. So we have created just that, a family with a caregiver couple who takes these children in to create a family setting. It is not a children's home, it's not an orphanage, or look anything like an institution. It's a home with 8 beautiful children that go to church together with their parents, that go to school, receive all the medical and other care that every child deserves, and it's happy and it's healthy, and each one is unique and allowed to grow up as they were designed to do. We do have one kind of exciting story of a little 8-year-old girl that we received 3 years ago. She's been with us, and after extensive work at the time to locate any family that she belonged to, we exhausted those resources. But just a few months ago, we received word that she does have grandparents who are capable and able and really willing to receive their granddaughter back home. And this was very exciting because we thought that there was no family for this little girl. And so just recently, we were able to restore that girl back home in her home village with her grandparents and her cousins. And she is happy, she's doing well, she's very happy to be home and within her own culture. That gives us an opportunity to place one more child in the family home that you support.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome, right? Yeah, that we get to do that. A lot of us will never get to go there or meet them, but I love hearing the individual stories because, really, if some of what we give here helps even just the one girl, it's that whole thing where I mean, where that's worth it, and it's helping many more. So love that. We are doing it locally, by the way, as I mentioned. Even though today's about global, I couldn't talk about it without telling you real quick the story. Leah, one of our attenders here about 4 years ago, she was in one of my life groups, and really just got a huge heart for this. It was right at the same time God was giving me a heart of like, we got to do something about this. And so she really felt called to start a nonprofit. It's called Grace, Girls Rising Above Child Exploitation, to help rescued girls right here in San Diego get back on their feet. So I said, yeah, go do it, and we will be your main partners from the start, because I really want to do this. Just don't know how to get going with it. So she's done that. We've been their main partner, and she's added other partners since then. It's been way harder than either of us imagined. A lot of obstacles, took longer than we thought. But, man, she's fought through every one of them. She's pushed so hard and got through them. And so now we're getting to where her and Desiree and some others get to really actually interact with girls at kind of after-school program and drive them in their van to kind of different activities and all sorts of things. And, hopefully working towards us getting a safe house like they have over there. I mean, it's no joke. I mean, I forget that some of these real stories happen around here. Leah told me just this week, a girl literally called her and was like, I'm at a place I just realized isn't safe and about to get taken advantage of. I don't have any way out of here. And Leah was able to go and get her out of there. Another girl saying, hey, since you bought groceries for me, I don't have to go on another date that I don't want to go on. And I mean, it's just heartbreaking, right? And you don't realize it's right in our own backyard. So we're doing huge things for that. So I just wanted you to know we actually just had a big event a week ago hosted by one of our attenders. A bunch of our attenders were volunteers at it and raised a bunch of awareness. We donated them money from what you guys give. And so just know that that's going on right here as well. We'll tell you stories and ways you can help serve. To actually interact with the girls, you have to go through quite a bit of kind of training and background check. But if that's something that that God's laying on your heart, we'll help you figure out how to do that as well. But this is all the stuff that we're trying to do, again, to do what God has all throughout His words. Take up the cause. Take up the cause, right? Fighting for those who can't fight for themselves. By the way, real quick, hopefully this is helpful to you. Really helped me to think about it this way. I learned from somebody I learned a lot about this from. This lady named Kirsten, who's really good at it. But I learned about this idea of 3 different levels of how to make a difference and impact people. And I think a lot of times as churches, we kind of stop at level 1. And so maybe kind of helping you think through all 3 real quick. Level 1 is doing a handout. And there's times to do that. You read stories of Jesus where he just went up to somebody in need and he just healed them, and then that was it, and he moved on. And so there's times we're called to just meet an immediate need, walk by somebody, help them. We do a lot of that here, giving backpacks. Today we're giving pies, we're giving books, we're doing a lot of stuff, just meet an immediate need and help. So keep doing that. That's the right place to start. But our challenge is to not just stop there. That's what I never knew before, that there's stuff beyond that. So level 2, you've kind of heard it this way, give a man a fish, feed him for a day, teach him to fish, feed him for a life. Or as they say in the South, teach a man to fish and he'll sit in a boat drinking beer the rest of his life. So, I mean, that's just how they do it down there. But level 2 is actually getting involved and building relationships, right? So instead of just we drop off backpacks to the elementary school, level 2 would be now we send volunteers to actually tutor the kids after school. Or we start, let's adopt a teacher and just partner with them all year long, anything they need in their classroom. These are ideas I have that we haven't started doing yet. Just so you know, there's a bunch more we can do, right? And so level 2 stuff is hand up. So sometimes you do a handout, and then other times you kind of get with them. Let me give you a hand up and kind of walk with you in it. And that's what we're doing with the Grace girls and all this kind of stuff. So we'll keep doing level 2 kind of stuff. And then level 3, right? So if level 2 is teach them to fish, level 3 is you still got to look at who owns the pond. And so you start addressing issues with kind of the pond itself that they're fishing out of, kind of the bigger kind of issues. That gets tougher, right? Because now you're trying to kind of change educational things and kind of medical things, in some cases even kind of, just getting involved in, PTAs and town councils and all these kinds of things, helping change more of the structures of things. And that's part of what we're doing. In some of these countries, we'll bring them clean water. We didn't just drop a few bottles of water off. We actually install something that's going to be there permanently to give clean water and then help kind of change kind of how they function so that they can live from this. So just as you think about kind of all three levels, I mean, I get inspired by that. It makes me want to figure that out, even right here in OB. And so we'll keep going after that as a church, and you can kind of think about what parts of those you're meant to help in. But as we, I just wanted to show you our other one real quick. Another way that we're helping kids. This is more in Latin America, and they really are orphans. But a couple of level 2, level 3 kind of stuff is when it comes to like medical stuff, and then when it comes to educational stuff. And we're trying to do both. So check it out.
Hey, New Break, I just want to thank you so much for believing many years ago in what was merely a vision that was Chicos de Promesa, and now Chicos Champions for Change. I don't know if you realize, but New Break Church gave me the first chunk of money to be able to put this dream into action. And it was because I had that money in an account that my boss gave me the go-ahead to move forward. And what we've seen now is this wonderful ministry, Chicas de Promesa, that's a girls' empowerment club. We help empower girls to be able to face the challenges that they have, having been born into poor communities in Latin America and the Caribbean, and we help them to just imagine a different future for their lives. The Chicos Champions for Change is making a difference in the lives of young men in these poverty communities. We're helping them to become champions to bring about change with the power of the Holy Spirit in their neighborhoods. And right now we have 5 other communities where we have Child Hope schools, and we want to start the Chicos and Chicas program. But we don't want to merely stop in Costa Rica. Child Hope works in 21 countries throughout Latin America and in about 300 schools, and we would love to see these ministries also in those communities transforming the lives of literally thousands and thousands of children throughout the region. And you can help change the lives of children, like a little boy named Alex. He came to the Child Hope School in Caracas, Venezuela many years ago. He lived in a community that was filled with poverty and violence, and yet God placed in his heart the desire to succeed and to become a medical doctor. And I am just so happy to say today he is a doctor, and he's serving the people in his own community. In today's Venezuela, he is there serving others and helping the needs of these people that are suffering so much right now. And you can be a part of it, and I would just ask you to partner with us and help transform the lives of these children. Just like New Break helped years ago to get this ministry launched, you can help carry us through to the future and reach many, many more children throughout Latin America and the Caribbean.
Hi, this is the Hernandez family here in Nicaragua. Hello, amazing people of New Break Church. We thank you so much for standing with us, for supporting us, and for being a part of our ministry here. We are the country coordinators with the organization of Child Hope, formerly called Latin American Child Care, with 23 schools that we're helping here. But now we're also working in a clinic that you guys have been helping us with. And we are so very grateful for all that God is doing and for allowing you guys to be a part of that. We've seen people come being carried by hammock, like 4 people from a nearby town that they walked 3 hours carrying somebody on a hammock to our clinic. And he knew that he wasn't going to be able to make it walking by himself. So the brethren helped with bringing him by hammock, and he was able to see our doctor and to get the lab tests and results. Within a day, gave him his medicine, and he was able to begin to take that trek home by himself. But if our clinic wasn't there, he'd have to come to the clinic, take that time, see our doctor, and then go up 3 to 4 hours in this big, uncomfortable truck, go up to the main city, stand in line, wait to have your tests done, wait the next day to get your results, come back down, and then see the doctor again. And so the fact that we have a lab now on site, we are able to diagnose our patients very quickly, and it's just meeting an amazing need. And we're just so thankful that you guys are on this journey with us, and we thank you and invite you to continue to join us.
The health department says, oh, you guys come here, this is a very malaria pandemic area. I said, we can go wherever God sent us to bring the good news of Jesus Christ. And we say, we want to make a difference in people's life. We want to impact them with the good news of Jesus. And thank you for believing in us. Thank you for believing, being with us right here in Nicaragua, praying for us and making a huge difference.
I mean, that's the whole gospel stuff right there, right? You can hear they're bringing the good news of Jesus, meeting spiritual needs and physical needs, and that's what Jesus did for people. That's what we're trying to do with both. Real quick, by the way, Jesus' brother understood this, so I don't know if that means Jesus talked about it a lot at home, but his own brother James said, this is what real religion is, which is interesting because that isn't really talked about anywhere else in the Bible. He says, real religion, sometimes we think, this is how you know a religious person. They're wearing suit and tie, and they have the right stickers on the back of the car and all that, right? We think that's what's most religious. So if you really want to know who's religious, just look at who's caring most deeply for those in distress. Right? That's pretty powerful. He says that's what God considers as real, religion, is caring for orphans, widows, for people in distress. And I hope you hear today that it doesn't actually flow out of just kind of anger of God, right? I mean, anger kind of bleeds out of love, that it really comes from the deep, unconditional love of God. And this is why we have to accept his love first, is for us to understand that God stands up for those who can't stand up for themselves. That's you, actually. That's me. I can't make up for all the sins in my life. I can't stand and defend myself before God. I have a lot of poverty, a lot of spiritual poverty when I don't have God, emotional poverty, relational poverty. And so God actually comes to you first, fights for you, defends you, rescues you. That's what our people getting baptized today are saying in front of friends and family, saying, yeah, I need God's love. I can't do it myself. He's the one who stood up for me and rescued me. And so I understand that I get his love, and now I'm meant to do something with it and share it with others. And so we always hope you hear every week how deeply his love runs for you, and then how we're called to do that with others. Because, the truth is God's answer to things in the world, he says, listen, I'm trying to use you in my plan and my mission to put the world back together, to restore it, to bring back shalom, bring back peace and unity and healing in the way it's meant to be. And so he invites us in to do that. And that's why, as a church, I mean, it's my heart, my dream that we'll never be a church that just has like a little mission department. Here's the little outreach team. Here's a little outreach budget. No, we are the mission, right? It's just who we are. We're just a family of people on mission with God, trying to bring hope and healing and gospel to each other and all the issues and ways we're struggling and hurting, and trying to do it in our backyard around Ocean Beach, Point Loma, and San Diego, and then, doing that around the world, that we are the mission and we are the church. And so just want to encourage you, challenge you to think about ways to how God's calling you to get involved. For sure, serving with us in our outreaches, going on mission trips, bringing your kids on mission trips. We do a house build every year, Memorial Day weekend, just over the border of Mexico. And we had people there with their kids last year, and it's just really powerful. And we don't have all our trips listed yet for 2020, but we'll tell you what they are as soon as we have them. And the other piece of it is, just how do we play a part in it, with our resources. So one more quick video for you, okay, and then we're done. But wanted you to see, it's actually, you heard from Pastor Robert earlier. He's currently does my job at our Scripps campus, but he's also going to be our future lead pastor over all the New Break locations over the next year. And so I love the way him and his wife are actually going to live this out. I find it pretty challenging, so I'm wrestling through it. So I just wanted you to hear from him.
So I hope you were inspired by today's message and by the stories that you were able to hear today. I know I was, and I'm just telling you that there's so much that we get to do here at New Break through Kingdom Builders. Now, if you're new to New Break, Kingdom Builders is simply the way we see building God's kingdom here on earth, as Jesus said, as it is in heaven. And so I hope you were inspired, but here's the part that I need you to play. And that is, I want to challenge you now to give, to be a part of Kingdom Builders through generosity, through our giving. And so that may look different for you. It may look different for other people. But what is your part? That's the part I want you to kind of have a conversation with God, and maybe if you're married, with your spouse. What is your part? Now, some of you maybe have never given to Kingdom Builders, and so that might be just kind of dipping your toe in and getting started. And so maybe that looks like $5 a week or $25 a month. And that's great. It's a great place to start. For some of you, maybe it's matching your Starbucks budget. Whatever it is you spend monthly on Starbucks, that you would match that and give that same amount to Kingdom Builders. Some of you have started this journey, and so maybe for you, you're kind of already doing that. So what about your cable and internet bill? Matching what normally you pay to cable and internet, you pay that dollar amount to Kingdom Builders as a monthly pledge. Now, for some of you, I would encourage you that maybe you're doing that already, so what's the next step for you on your generosity journey? Maybe it's matching your car payment, or even going another step further, your mortgage or rent payment. What you pay monthly, you would then give that same amount to Kingdom Builders. Well, that's the journey that Lisa and I are on. We want to get through 2020 to the place where what we give above and beyond our tithes, which is 10% that we give to the local church, above and beyond that, we want to match our mortgage, our monthly mortgage payment, and give that same amount to Kingdom Builders. Now, wherever you're starting, for me, it's what I want to encourage you is start. Begin the journey somewhere. And so we have these cards that are on your chair, and I want you to take this card and look at it. And some of you are prepared to give. We're going to receive an offering in just a minute at our campuses, and you can do it that way. You can write a check and put it in the offering plate as it comes by. If you're not prepared to give today, that's why we created these cards. I want you to take this home. And on it shows the goal that we have, $120,000 that we want to raise between now and the end of the year, and to do some of these great projects. And by the way, it's not just some of the great projects we have now. There are so many other projects that we feel God has called us to. So it doesn't just stop here. We have a bunch of other things that if we don't give, they won't happen. And so I want you to take this card home, and on it, it talks about the 4 different kind of projects that we're doing right now that we wanted you to pray about. We talked about them a few weeks ago, and then 2 of them today. But the goal of this card is for you to take it home as you leave the church that you're at, whatever campus you're at, that you go home and you pray about it. You take this card and you look at it. And then log online, because there's different ways you can give. You can bring your offering next week and put it in, as a check, or you can go online and create an account, whatever that looks like for you. But this is meant to remind you. Because if you're like me, I get busy, I go home, I forget. And so I want you to be able to do that. But my prayer is that you don't leave this weekend and go, that was a great story, and then forget. Ask God, what would he have you do? And let's together build the kingdom of God. God bless you.
Yeah, I'm grateful for you guys. I'm proud of you. Thank you. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. Thanks for all the ways that you give and be the church here. I just want you to be inspired. Keep doing it, because there's so much more we haven't seen God do yet. And my final thing would be this. I think about one of the biggest questions that we ask God, and that other people that don't go to church ask God, is how could God let all this suffering happen in the world? How can you let it happen, God? How can you see all these problems and kids in need, and how can you stand by and let it happen? Why won't you do anything about it? And I often wonder if God's answer is, yeah, I was going to ask you the same thing. Yeah. I mean, why don't you do anything about it? I think God would actually say, I am doing something about it. You're my answers, right? I mean, us together can't solve everything, but, Jesus followers all over the world. It's like, yeah, I am answering. You're my answer to the prayers. And so, that's what I hope we can be, is the answers to that, just as we give here, as we serve here, as we pray for what God's doing here. So let's pray together, and then we're going to receive our tithes and offerings during our final song. So let's do that. Father, we just say thank you that there is hope, that for all the world challenges going on and local problems we have, God,